comes as well as hundreds of retired Israeli security officials, including former heads of intelligence agencies, have urged the US President Donald Trump to pressure their own government to end the war in Gaza. The officials writing in an open letter that it is our professional judgment that Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel. Well, let's discuss that with our international affairs commentator Doug Herbert, who's with me here and said, look, it's quite a strong letter, isn't it? Former Israeli security officials. Is it going to weaken the position of Benjamin Netanyahu, though?
Yeah, well, before you can answer that question, you have to say, why have they even chosen this timing? Why have 550 former security officials, as you said, former Mossad, Shin Bet, security officials, police, why did they all come on board to sign what you said rightly was a very strongly worded letter, really pleading with Donald Trump to bring pressure to bear on Netanyahu? They see an increasingly desperate situation in which, as you just read, they see that the Israeli military, for all intents and purposes, has achieved all of its its strategic objectives. They can't do any more. Benjamin Netanyahu has stuck to this line, to what is his narrative and that of his far-right coalition, a war to the end, a war to destroy, annihilate, eliminate Hamas. What they're essentially saying, as security experts, as people who have been in the positions calling the shots in the past, they're saying that there is nothing effectively that Israel can achieve past this point. They said that what began as a just war, as they saw it, a war against a horrible terrorist atrocity to degrade Hamas's ability to ever do anything like that again, has turned into a war that has no real articulated and realistic objectives anymore. And they said that it risks at this point not just undermining, but basically depriving Israel of its security and its identity and its reputation on the world stage, Israel taking a real hit. They see ceasefire talks at a total impasse. And rather than in the past, those talks were about a phased sort of diplomatic solution to this, to achieve a ceasefire and then negotiate an end to the war. It's no longer about phases. They see a Netanyahu who seems hunkered down, perhaps under the thumb of his far-right coalition, ministers there, unwilling or unable, or both, to make any sort of concessions at this point. That for Netanyahu, it is and this is what the wording has been, sort of an all-or-nothing thing. The U.S.-Israeli proposition as it stands now is all the hostages out at once, in one go. If not, we pursue this war. It is that sense of there is simply no other option right now being proposed, no other vision being put forward by this leadership that is forcing the hand of these security chiefs. And these are not liberal progressive types. These are people who've been in some of the toughest military and security positions in Israel. And they are seeing this, and they're saying we're seeing it for what it is right now, and we have to call time on it.
In the meantime, though, Doug still talks at a real impasse. I mean, what are the options on the table? Any way forward?
Well, yeah. First of all, is it going to weaken Netanyahu? Does it matter, actually, is the question. Even if Donald Trump were to listen to that letter and sort of try to bring more pressure to bear on Netanyahu, would Netanyahu be either able to listen or willing to listen? How much of Netanyahu is his far-right coalition? How much is he a man apart who just is doing the bidding of that far-right coalition because he wants to avoid a day of reckoning if and when the war were to end? The options are very limited right now, right? You have the stalled peace talks initiated and undertaken with Turkey and Qatar and Egypt, with U.S. Mediation participation as well. You have the option right now, the so-called diplomatic solution, which has been put forward by France and Saudi Arabia at that UN-hosted conference, which would involve the recognition of a Palestinian state. In return, Hamas would be excluded from any future governance in Palestine. It would not be allowed to take part in that. Hamas isn't buying that, obviously. It is not willing to buy into any deal in which it has absolutely no role in a future Palestinian authority. On the other hand, we right now see an Israeli government which, far from showing signs of willing to make concessions and backing down, is right now pushing, like I said, that all-or-nothing option, which means it's almost grist to the far right and the extremist right in Israel, which has been saying, we told you so right now. We have no alternative in the face of this recalcitrant, intransigent Hamas, but to push this war to the end, to keep waging a military campaign. So, yeah, right now, all the sides are further apart than ever. The options that are on the table are either stalled or infeasible to one side or another, which leaves what right now? It leaves what? The recognition of Palestinian statehood, going forward. That's the option we're seeing more and more of the international community signing on to. Will it gain some more critical momentum, enough critical momentum to force a change in the thinking of Netanyahu, if not in his far-right coalition? That's much less likely. Watch this space, but it's hard to be optimistic from where we stand right here and now today.
Doug, thanks very much, Doug Herbert.